Round of Court 5. It is 28 degrees Celsius in Paris, the kind of heavy, early summer heat that seems to bake the red clay into something entirely unforgiving. And yet, the stands are completely overflowing. There is a distinct rhythm to the noise today. It isn't the polite, murmured appreciation you usually find during a pre-tournament practice session at Roland Garros. It is a celebration, a genuine, full-throated celebration. Fans are chanting her name, hundreds of them, draped in the colors of the Philippines, turning a routine afternoon hit into a festival. Today is Eala's 21st birthday. She is quite literally growing up in front of the world, celebrating a milestone in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower, surrounded by people who view her not just as a tennis player, but as a cultural icon. But if you look closely, past the smiles and the waves to the crowd, you can see the immediate shift when she steps back up to the baseline. The noise fades. The festival disappears. The reality of the moment sets in. She bounces the ball. Once. Twice. Entirely locked into the geometry of the court. There is a profound isolation in elite tennis. A quiet space between the ears that you have to protect at all costs, especially when the world is screaming your name. For years, Eala was the prodigy. The young talent fighting through the grueling qualifying rounds, earning her keep on the fringes of the tour. But this year is different. She didn't have to qualify. She is here, in Paris, as a direct entry into the main draw. She is no longer the opening act. She is the main event. And with that elevation comes a completely different kind of pressure. To truly understand the weight of this moment for Eala, you have to understand the sheer scale of the expectation she carries. The fanfare we are seeing in Paris this week is not normal for a player preparing for a first-round match. We are seeing fans flying in from Washington, D.C., people rerouting business trips from Switzerland, all just to catch a glimpse of a practice session. For the better part of a half-decade, the narrative surrounding Eala was one of immense promise. She was the pride of Southeast Asian tennis, the teenager making historic runs in junior Grand Slams, the wildcard entry everyone kept a close eye on. The media treated her with a mix of fascination and protective optimism. Opponents viewed her as a dangerous, if sometimes inconsistent, young talent who could occasionally be rushed out of her game. The story was always about the future. It was always about what she might eventually become. But professional tennis is a brutally impatient sport. Eventually, potential has to translate into ranking points. The grace period of being the promising young player expires, and you are left to survive in the deep waters of the WTA Tour. What we are witnessing this week at Roland Garros is the formal expiration of that grace period, and she has welcomed it. By securing direct entry into the main draw, by bypassing the physical and emotional meat grinder that is the Grand Slam qualifying tournament, Eala has fundamentally altered how the tour views her. She is no longer trying to prove she belongs in the building. Her ranking has already done that. But that shift in status changes the pacing of the entire tournament experience. When you are a qualifier, you arrive at the main draw battle-tested. You are running on adrenaline, already acclimated to the speed of the courts, the heavy conditions, and the tension of match play. You are playing with house money. As a direct entry, especially one drawing this much international media attention, week leading up to the tournament is a different kind of endurance test. It is a waiting game. You see the photos of her celebrating her birthday against the backdrop of the Parisian skyline. You see the thousands of interactions on social media, the articles, the endless requests for a few seconds of her time. It is a beautiful testament to her stardom and the genuine connection she has built with her supporters. But the reality of elite clay court tennis is that stardom doesn't win points on dirt. The red clay of Roland Garros is the great equalizer. It doesn't care how many miles your fans traveled, and it certainly doesn't care if it's your birthday. It only cares about your baseline depth, your rally tolerance, and your willingness to suffer through 20-ball exchanges. The public narrative right now is entirely focused on the milestone, the celebration of a young woman coming of age on the grandest stage. But inside her camp, the narrative is entirely different. They know that the old version of Eala, the one who relied purely on raw talent and adrenaline, would not survive the second week of a major. To understand how she actually got here, to understand why she no longer needs a wild card to sit at this table, we have to look away from the crowds. We have to look at the mechanics of a game that has quietly, methodically been rebuilt from the ground up. Watch her footwork during a heavy baseline exchange on Court 5. On the red clay of Paris, you cannot simply plant your feet and hit through the ball. The surface demands a sliding, continuous movement. It requires a willingness to absorb heavy topspin and strike while moving backward or laterally. A year ago, Eala would occasionally rush her shots in these positions. She had a habit of pulling the trigger a bit too early on cross-court exchanges, leaking unforced errors when her rhythm was disrupted. Today, you can see a distinct maturity in her court positioning. She is playing with greater depth and trusting her rally tolerance to pin opponents 2 feet behind the baseline before she tries to unlock the court. The biggest structural shift we've seen is her inside-out forehand. It has really become her primary tool for pace manipulation. Instead of settling for passive, neutral exchanges, she is actively stepping around her backhand. She uses heavy, dipping topspin to dictate play, forcing her opponent to defend from high above their shoulders. Even her first serve percentage, which has historically been a fluctuating metric under pressure, has leveled out. She isn't necessarily hunting for raw power or unreturnable aces right now. Instead, she is relying on slice and body serves to protect her service games, ensuring she can start the point on her own terms. But executing these tactical adjustments during a midday practice session is an entirely different puzzle than executing them when the scoreline is real. The psychological toll of clay court tennis is cumulative. It builds in your legs and it settles in your mind. When a match stretches past the 2-hour mark, when the afternoon heat peaks and the ball feels heavier with every strike, technical discipline is the very first thing to erode. If you lose your emotional composure for even 2 points, the match momentum can shift irrevocably. This is where the real test lies for Eala this week. Analyze her body language during her post-practice interaction with the fans. She is incredibly gracious. She stays late in the technical area, signing autographs and taking selfies in the sweltering heat, just absorbing the adoration of hundreds of people. It is a massive expenditure of emotional energy before she has even hit a competitive ball in the main draw. The adrenaline spike of playing in front of an adoring crowd can be a potent weapon, but it is also exhausting. If you ride the emotional highs of the fans too intensely, the inevitable lows of a match become that much harder to manage. A missed break point, a bad bounce, a tight line call. Suddenly, those small moments feel devastating. Eala has stated that her primary objective for her 21st year is simply navigating the first round here in Paris. It might sound like a modest goal for a player of her caliber, but it is actually a highly pragmatic acknowledgement of the psychological hurdle ahead. She understands that early round matches at a major are rarely about playing perfect tennis. They are about managing anxiety, controlling frustration patterns, and finding a way to win when your game feels completely out of sync. The festival on Court 5 is over. The fans will head back to their hotels. The social media notifications will eventually slow down, and the quiet will return. And in that quiet, the draw reveals a very specific, highly personal challenge. To advance past the first round on Monday, Eala will have to defeat someone who knows her game just as well as she does. When you look at the first round draw of a Grand Slam, you're usually looking for tactical matchups and stylistic friction. But sometimes, the draw presents something a lot more complicated than that. Eala's opening round opponent on Monday is Iva Jovic. Jovic isn't just another dangerous young player coming out of the American system. She is a close friend, a peer who has come up through the ranks alongside Eala. And in professional tennis, that kind of familiarity breeds a very specific type of tactical gridlock. When you play an opponent who has shared practice courts with you for years, someone who understands the exact trajectory of your ball and knows exactly what frustrates you, the traditional scouting report basically goes out the window. Jovic's game plan against Eala will likely center on rhythm disruption. The American is known for her defensive stability on the baseline, her ability to redirect pace, and her willingness to just extend rallies until the other side forces a low-percentage shot. She knows Eala prefers a clean, rhythmic baseline exchange where she can dictate with that inside-out forehand. Jovic's whole objective will be to deny her that comfort. Expect to see Jovic vary the height and depth of her ball. She will use heavy topspin loopers to push Eala back, followed immediately by flat, skidding shots to keep her off balance. She is going to test Eala's patience, targeting the backhand wing and asking the 21-year-old if she really has the discipline to hit 15 consecutive balls on a slow clay court without overcommitting. It creates a really compelling tactical paradox. Jovic knows Eala's vulnerabilities, but knowing them and actually exploiting them under the stadium lights at Roland Garros are two entirely different things. Eala's evolution over the past year means she just isn't the same predictable player Jovic might have faced in the past. With the increased depth on her baseline shots and her improved physical conditioning, simply waiting for an Eala error is no longer a viable strategy. The tour is actively adjusting to Eala as a main draw fixture, but those adjustments are still incomplete. They are fragile. Monday's match probably won't be about a grand tactical masterstroke. It will be about who can mask their vulnerability better when the tension peaks. Ultimately, this match, and really this entire tournament, is a projection of Alex Eala's long-term ceiling. For years, the conversation around Southeast Asian tennis was defined by a sense of isolation from the sport's traditional power bases in Europe and the Americas. By establishing herself as a direct entry at Roland Garros, Eala has already broken a historical barrier. But the true measure of her career won't be defined by a singular milestone or a celebratory birthday in Paris. It is going to be defined by her surface adaptability and her capacity to maintain this baseline consistency week after week on the main tour. Look back at that image of Eala celebrating her 21st birthday with the Eiffel Tower in the background. It is a picture-perfect moment. It's exactly the kind of image that satisfies the media and delights the fans. But the reality of professional tennis is that moments like those are immediately washed away by the relentless demands of the schedule. The birthday cake is gone. The social media praise will fade into the background, and all that will remain is a yellow felt ball and a red dirt court. Whether she advances deep into the draw this week or faces an early exit at the hands of a close friend, the defining takeaway from Paris is that the paradigm has shifted. Alex Eala is no longer fighting for a seat at the table. She has earned her place. The talent is evident. The public support is unprecedented. The technical foundation is secure. Now, the only thing left for her to conquer is the quiet, heavy space between the points, that solitary ground where prospects finally become champions.